Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Nerves Guys podcast, where we discuss movement through the point of view of the brain. I'm your host, James, and this episode is brought to you by the Neuroband, the wearable vision and balance training tool to help develop posture, focus, and coordination. And we'll talk more about that at the end. But first, let's get into today's episode. We're going to be talking about headphones. So, as usual, this is a user question. User? What's the best word for that? Listener? Yeah. This one's a listener question. Somebody has written in specifically to ask, should I be training with headphones? Didn't really specify actually whether it was training or not. I think they just said, should I be wearing headphones? But we're going to talk about it in general, and then we're going to talk about it through like fitness and training and whether or not it can actually be a performance booster or hinderer. Could be surprising, like there's arguments for both. So I guess this one's maybe come about because recently there was an article suggesting that those noise-canceling headphones might not be so great for you, and that people are showing up with worse hearing or testing for worse hearing at a younger and younger age, and they've suggested that it might be because people are wearing noise-canceling headphones for too much of the time. And the reason for it actually turns out to be kind of surprising. So you would assume that anytime headphones comes into the picture about affecting your hearing, is pretty likely you would assume that, you've been listening to music too loud, and the noise over time has caused damage to those little cilia hairs. Like, that's basically everything I learned about hearing in school, was that, you've got these little hairs, and when noise gets too loud, it actually damages the hairs. Once they stop working, they're sort of done, they're gone, you're not getting them back. And yeah, basically what gets replaced is either you become hard of hearing or you end up with severe tinnitus later on in life. And that's something I had to pay very close attention to, because I spent most of my teenage years as a musician, thought that I was going to, make it big as a drummer, was going to be, world famous, touring the world. And as a teenager, it was very much like a taboo thing. Like, if you were wearing earplugs, that was like a sign of weakness, let's say. So everybody wanted to show how cool they were by the fact that they weren't going to be wearing any earplugs in the rehearsal studios, and the rehearsal studios were tiny. And I had to cave to that pretty quickly, because my ears were just so much more sensitive than everybody else's, and I physically couldn't hit my own snare drum without having without flinching, and having like a startle effect. So pretty early on, I ended up getting earplugs, and it seems to have done me well, because I know a lot of people back from my music days are dealing with the kind of hearing loss, tinnitus, that kind of thing. But weirdly, it did seem to take quite a long time for that to manifest. So sorry if you thought that was a long tangent when we were talking about headphones. Yeah, it does kind of seem like even when you are exposing yourself to loud sounds, the negative effects don't seem to be coming right away. It seems like it's a kind of compound effect of lots of exposure, and then later on, as your hearing seems to decline anyway, the major negative effects seem to manifest themselves. Not necessarily the case for everybody. If you're dealing with really loud noises all the time, constantly, I'm sure that will cause things to degenerate much quicker. But just sharing the experience that I found is that with the hearing loss side of things, it kind of screws you over a bit, because when you can play loud music in your ears and you feel like it's fine after you don't have tinnitus, you feel fine, you can hear just as well as you could before, then you're more likely to just keep going with that and believe that it's fine. But on the other side of things, what seems to be happening with these noise cancelling headphones is not only do you have the same, potential for loud noise, but I guess the benefit of noise cancelling means you can listen at a quieter volume because the headphones themselves are blocking out all the noise from the outside. But then the problem with that is you hear sound basically on a two-dimensional plane anytime that you've got those headphones in. So when I'm out and about in the world, I hear a noise in front of me or behind me, and if you're curious about like why your ears are shaped the way they're shaped, it's so that sounds, when they enter your ears, will start to bounce off all these little ridges. So you'll have some sound will go straight in, some sound will bounce off all of the different ridges in your ear, and when that's happening on both sides of you, your brain can then get a more accurate depiction of where sound is coming from. So if certain frequencies of sound take longer to reach your ear than certain other frequencies, and if that difference is very pronounced on either side, then your brain's going to know that the sound is coming more likely from this one area, because that's where all the sound is going directly into your ear, rather than bouncing around the room and then hitting all of these different ridges at different angles so that you hear it later. So the whole shape of your ears is literally designed to give you a better idea of where objects are in space. Lots of tangents today. Interesting note, I have found when I test spatial location with people who have recently had a lot of ear piercings, they tend to do worse. That's just kind of anecdotal. I don't know of any research that's looked into that considerably, but I just thought it was kind of cool that, when you change the shape of the ear, you actually change your ability to perceive sound, and it might take a little bit of adjusting before your brain figures out what's going on. But yeah, where were we at? That kind of 3D perception of sound in space is really, really important for us. And when we listen just to headphones, all of the sound is always coming from the exact same spot. And most of the time, when it's music and things, most of it's been recorded so that everything does sound nice and harmonious together, rather than sounding like something's way off in the distance and things like that. So we actually end up teaching our brain that we're no longer paying attention to all of this kind of spatial mapping that it usually does. And just like with everything in the brain, once we stop using it, we start losing it. So the less and less often that you're kind of trying to pinpoint locations of things in space, the quicker the brain's ability to do that is going to diminish and degrade. And the suggestions from what I was reading was that this is actually affecting people in just their hearing tests. So like when they can hear certain frequencies, that kind of drops off. I guess that might make sense because different frequencies travel better from further away. So, I guess bass frequencies you can hear way off in the distance, when high frequencies you actually can't hear so well. And it's possible that might be making a difference on the sound test. I don't know the exact mechanics of why they said the hearing was getting worse, but that is one thing that we probably do want to consider about using headphones. Is it's nice to drown out the external environment if the external environment wasn't that pleasant to begin with. But our brain has the ability to map the external environment through sound for a reason. So when it comes to like mental health concerns, when people are coming to me, especially with anxiety, sound and balance, which we'll come to in a little bit, are two of the most important things that I always want to test in people. Because for anxiety, what is it as an emotion? It's your brain telling you you need to move to sort out whatever's going wrong. Like, emotions can't tell you what the problem is, but they can usually tell you what the brain thinks is a good response. So with anxiety, your brain is saying, I don't know what's wrong, but action is probably the way to fix it. And a really common source of that is needing to know everything in your environment. So your eyes are really great for focusing on a specific thing. They can do a little bit of, monitoring the distance, but I guess the easiest way to explain it is the brain assumes that you are always going to face yourself or orient yourself in the most important direction for you. So whatever it is that you need to focus on, you're going to make sure that that's right in the center of your vision. And then most of the direct threats to you are probably going to come from those same kinds of directions. So anything that's going to challenge you for the thing that you're focusing on, or that is specifically trying to challenge you, will do so by getting into your eye line and, making its approach. And so we've got our focused vision to deal with what we want to look at. We got our peripheral vision to kind of keep an eye on everything else. But vision only encapsulates like a pretty narrow realm of the space and the world. And the other sense that we have that's really great at figuring out what is around us, especially what's in the distance, so stuff that we're not aware of yet that could potentially become a problem, is going to be our ears. So our ears, when they are really well attuned to the environment around them, we can hear noises. We can know exactly where that noise is coming from. If our ears are really good, then they also get good at being able to recognize, is that a noise that I know? Is that a noise that I don't know? What do I think it's likely to be? And then if I don't know it, then it's going to send signals to the brain to say, hey, vision, you should probably get over there right now, so that we can figure out what this potential threat or problem is and deal with that. So with that in mind, you can probably see how over time, if you let your ear's ability to create like a sensory map of the world, call it like your ear's sonar or radar system, there's a good chance that your brain is going to be more constantly in a state of like anxious, nervous tension, because it says, okay, cool, I've got a good visual image of the world in front of me. I've got no idea what's going on over there. I've got no idea what's going on over there. Behind me, you can just forget about it. So what is a trait that you see a lot of the time in anxiety is that people tend to be looking around quite a lot more often. They seem to be changing their They seem to be changing their focus. They seem to be adjusting their gaze. That's something that can happen a lot more frequently. Or on the other side is where people will just give up and find themselves like a corner where they can make themselves as unintimidating as possible. So you've got the back covered, and otherwise you just keep your head down and just try and keep out of everybody else's way. So basically, where we're at so far is that I would probably encourage people, especially if you find that you deal with anxiety regularly, or if you find that you get negative emotions maybe tending towards anxiety that you don't know the explanation of, it could be a really good idea to monitor your headphone use and see, do you actually have good awareness of what's going on in the environment? And if you're always wearing your headphones when you're out and about, it might be worth looking at trying to wean yourself off and trying to see if you can make the switch so that you get used to picking up noise that's surrounding you. There's some kind of cool options that you can do with that. So you could just try and take them out and maybe go out into less busy spaces and stuff. Unfortunately, if you've been using headphones for a really long time, you might have become more comfortable with the headphones than without. And so even though we're trying to take them away to improve our anxiety levels, suddenly when you're not dealing with familiar noises anymore, you're now dealing with all the noise of stuff that you might potentially need to check out, then that can seem like a much bigger threat. So a few things that you can do. Number one is play games where, go find a quiet space. Could be in your house, or could be in somewhere like a park if there's not much traffic nearby, and just sit in silence, eyes closed, and just pay attention to noises as and where you hear them. So in your house, probably be muffled sounds of like things going on outside. Could be, little creaks of floorboards and furniture, and most of the time your house, wherever you're situated, is going to make random noises from time to time, no matter how solid a material it's made out of. These things shift with temperature, chemicals, heat. Temperature and heat, same thing. But there's loads of factors that will cause little mini sounds, and you can start trying to pick up on what they are, where they might be coming from. Another one that you could potentially try out is bone conduction headphones. So they're headphones that rather than going over your ear, they actually go around the outside, and they basically pump noise through the little bit of bone in front of your ear to get to kind of the same end goal. So like your ear canal kind of runs down to where the eardrum is. This kind of pumps the sound through to the eardrum, but via the outside. And I guess they were developed for, maybe cyclists or hikers where, you want to listen to music, but you still need to have a good awareness of the outside. And it can just help you with that kind of familiarity of the world around, or the I'm losing it today. Familiarity of the music while still having an awareness of the world around you. So those are kind of two ways that you could potentially be weaning yourself off of headphone use if you feel like it's too much. So now let's get on to the more fun part, for me anyway, which is, should I be wearing headphones when I am training? When I'm doing my workout, my fitness, my sport, whatever it is that you are going for. First of all, we'll get it out of the way and say safety is sometimes an issue. So, I have a background in circus, and if somebody is on a flying trapeze, for example, probably not a good idea for them to be swinging around freely in the open air without having access to their ears to be able to hear if somebody calls out that, something dangerous is happening, or they need to look. So if safety is an issue, it's always going to be a case of, well, then sorry, tough shit. Play music in the space if that's what you want. But outside of that, turns out headphones could potentially be either really stimulating or really debilitating for certain individuals. So your cochlear nerve, which is the nerve that deals with sound, so all of the sound that goes into your ears, into the eardrum, basically the eardrum converts it into the information that the cochlear nerve will send to the brain. And as it turns out, the cochlear nerve doesn't have its own individual line of connection to the brain. It's actually joined together with another super important system that also lives really close to the ear, like just inside it. And that is the vestibular nerve. The vestibular nerve is designed to deal with balance. So it basically tells the brain whether or not your head's moving, how fast it's going, are you going up and down, are you moving forwards or back, are you accelerating, are you staying still? All of that good stuff is channeled from the vestibular nerve. Now, depending on your kind of neural makeup, so you might have a cochlear nerve or a vestibular nerve that is really, really sensitive, or not, like really desensitized, or depending on, you know, all of the usual factors. If you've already damaged your ears from loud noise, if you have desensitized your vestibular nerve due to lack of movement for a long time, you might find that playing with sound and sound entering your ears could have a really big impact on your ability to balance and your brain's ability to basically feel comfortable with movement. So for some people, if the vestibular nerve is maybe not getting enough blood flow because, you know, we've been too sedentary for too long, and we're just not used to monitoring our balance in that way, then it could be the case that adding an additional stimulus to something nearby, such as the cochlear nerve, could actually go a long way to increasing blood flow for the vestibular system. So, to put it more simply, basically that means for some people, when they listen to music, their balance is going to increase. Their ability to balance is going to increase. That doesn't have to mean they get really good at standing still. Balance is super important for anything where you don't want to fall over. So walking, running, backflipping, all of those things, your brain needs to have really good awareness of what's going on with the head and how it's moving in space. And yeah, you could try playing a bit of music and testing, you know, you can test it just standing on one foot. Does your balance actually increase or decrease? And it's not even just, what's the word? Oh, sorry guys, all my words are escaping me. But it doesn't go both ways. That's what I want to say. You could try just sound in one ear or just sound in the other ear. Conversely, you could also try plugging one or both ears and seeing, does that improve your balance? So kind of just like everything else, headphones is something that you could really play with and test to see, does it improve your sports performance overall? And the best way to do that, as I said, is going to be through some kind of one-leg balance. Get yourself to a balanced position where, you know, you're just on the edge of being able to control it. Try it out for 30 seconds or so. Then try it out with headphones for 30 seconds or so and see, does it get better? And for some people, again, it's very hard to say who this is going to be positive for or negative for, but for some people, you might actually find balance gets way better. And then in those circumstances, you say, okay, I'm going to actually play with keeping my headphones in while I'm training, or maybe even keeping headphones in one ear, or maybe some combination of headphone, earplug, something cool like that. For other people, it'll go the opposite way. You will have the headphone in and your balance is going to get way worse. And number one, that's a sign, well, then let's test the earplug. But number two, it could just be a sign that the vestibulocochlear nerve, which contains both bits of information, is now being overwhelmed with sound, and the vestibular nerve is unable to kind of fit its information down the channel. So if there's too much electrical impulses coming from one place, it's going to be hard to add any more once it's kind of become saturated. So yeah, we can test it out both ways. We can figure out whether the headphones might be useful for us or whether it might be worth plugging the ear. And then the final thing that I'll leave you on is, if you find that the headphones are in fact useful, the other thing you might want to start playing around with, and if you don't use headphones and you've got music in the space, you can still do the same thing with this too, is play around with the speed. So our bodies have loads and loads of sensors for understanding time. You've got your biological clock and other things like your circadian rhythm figures out how long a day is. Your heartbeat figures out how regularly your heart needs to contract to pump glucose and oxygen around your body. And there's tons of them in between, like how much you blink, how fast you walk. All of those things have some kind of nerves that are devoted to figuring time out. And what they have found is that when you play faster music to people, they tend to speed up their walking. When you play slower music, they tend to slow down. And I believe that's also been correlated to heart rate as well. So little increases in heart rate for fast music, little decreases for slow music. What that means is if you're training and you know, in my sport, speed cubing, I know that there's a tendency for a lot of the competitors to turn way too fast. And in those scenarios, actually playing slower music than you would normally listen to might actually just unconsciously encourage slower turning. Similarly, in something like acrobatics, which I also have a good deal of experience with, I might want to play with faster music to try speeding the body up. So it's not just whether or not we should have the headphones or the music. We actually might find that different speeds affect the body in different ways as well. And I think that's pretty cool, pretty amazing, and something that everybody should be playing with if you're working in, sport, workouts, fitness, whatever. It's really worth a try to see, does it change physically how you do things without you having to consciously focus on it and work on it. So we'll leave it there for today. Sorry about all the tangents. Sorry that I lost all of my words, but I really appreciate you watching these. If you do find this stuff interesting, especially if you find the content from today interesting, I would really love it if you would head on over to rewireND.com and take a look at the Neuroband course. So if you're watching, this is a Neuroband. If you're listening, basically a little bracelet thing you can wear that has some little symbols on it that you can do some vision training with. Essentially, you buy the course, we'll ship the band out to you wherever you are in the world, and it covers vision and balance training, kind of all the different important movements that your eyes need to make and that your inner ear needs to make. So if you find that you're experimenting with improving your balance through headphones or whatever else, you definitely want to check out this course. It's essentially a in-depth beginner version of all the different types of head movements that your vestibular system controls, all the different ways it integrates with your eyes, and it takes about 12 to 30 minutes a day to complete. So we've got 2 workouts, a kind of easier beginner one, more difficult advanced one. Do them each end of the day and see your balance improve, see your posture improve, see your ability to regulate your emotions, focus, all of that. I'll have to leave that for another episode to talk about the connection between emotions and balance. But I'm going on another tangent, so I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.